reflections in a shattered looking glass. As Alice tumbled through the shimmering void that separates worlds, she landed not with a gentle touch, but a jolt, a rude awakening from the ethereal dance of the Nightwood to the harsh, structured reality of the material plane. Alice found herself on the edge of Valorous, a quaint town nestled between the whispering forests and the ever-reaching sky. The air here clung to her skin, heavy and unfamiliar, carrying the slow, tedious rhythm of a world bound by time, a stark contrast to the timeless chaos she so adored. As her feet touched the material plane, a wave of nausea clenched her stomach, the ordinariness of it all stifling her breath. Time moved with tedious precision, each second plodding after the next, a monotonous march that churned her stomach and tightened her chest with an inexplicable dread. Yet, beneath this discomfort lay a spark of curiosity, ignited by the sights and sounds of human life. Alice saw in the distance a town bustling with life, so she decided to approach. Alice paused at the bustling market square's edge, the vivid tapestry of human life unfolding before her, a stark contrast to the chaotic wilderness of the Nightwood. The spoken words of the townspeople were an incomprehensible melody to her ears. The language danced through the air, a cryptic symphony of sounds that she could hear but not decipher. Each phrase and laugh that floated by was a puzzle she had no keys to solve, leaving her alienated amidst a sea of communication. Realizing she could not grasp the spoken words, Alice turned to her innate magical abilities, reaching out with her mind to gently skim the surface thoughts of those around her. This allowed her to tap into a different kind of dialogue, one not bound by the limits of language, but by the universal flow of emotions and fleeting thoughts. Her focus drifted to the lively echo of children's laughter surrounding a stone fountain at the square center. The young ones chased each other in looping circles, their minds shimmering with vivid imaginations and light-hearted plans, tagging, splashing, and shouting in sheer delight. Their thoughts sparkled free of the heavy veils of caution that draped the Nightwood, painting their world in strokes of bold, untamed colors. To Alice, this unfiltered exuberance was both fascinating and surreal, a stark contrast to the veiled intentions and hidden perils she was accustomed to. The children's unbridled joy, freely expressed and devoid of any subterfuge, drew her in with its purity, presenting a slice of life that was as refreshingly clear as the water dancing in the fountain. As Alice strolled deeper into the verdant heart of Valorous, her path led her to a quaint park adorned with blooming flowers and neatly trimmed hedges. Amidst this serene landscape, her attention was drawn to a young couple seated on a park bench, sheltered under the canopy of a grand maple. Their spoken language was beyond her grasp, yet the emotional resonance of their exchange was palpable through the delicate hum of their surface thoughts. They shared the fluttering sensations of new love, each thought blooming like a petal in the vibrant flower of their burgeoning relationship. Observing their tender interactions, Alice felt a subtle tug at her heart, a quiet fascination with a depth of connection that seemed to flow effortlessly between them. This silent symphony of affection planted a seed of curiosity in her, softly threading through her own thoughts and subtly expanding her understanding of the intricate emotional landscapes yet to be explored. As Alice drifted further into the heart of the park, Her attention was captured by a lively group of friends gathered around a rustic wooden picnic table. Their laughter, rich and unrestrained, wove through the air, punctuated by playful gestures and shared glances that spoke of deep bonds and a long history together. Alice tuned into their surface thoughts and found them brimming with anecdotes and plans for future adventures. There was an ease to their interaction, a seamless flow of understanding and acceptance that intrigued her. While she couldn't quite grasp the specific content of their jokes or stories, the harmony of their companionship resonated with her, sparking a quiet curiosity about what it felt like to be part of such a circle. This subtle encounter, rich with the essence of friendship, left a gentle imprint on Alice, stirring a soft whisper of longing in her heart for a similar connection. Venturing deeper, Alice observed a family gathering under a nearby oak tree for a midday meal. The parents shared soft smiles and light touches, their thoughts interwoven with concern and love for their children, who chattered excitedly. Observing this scene, Alice felt an unfamiliar tug in her chest, a mix of fascination and an unnameable pang that bordered on envy. She couldn't yet identify this emotion as jealousy or longing, but it was a distant echo of something she lacked and yearned for, a silent seed of discontent with her own solitary existence. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with streaks of orange and purple, Alice's enchantment with the town began to wane. The methodical ticking of the town clock, each chime a reminder of the world's tedious predictability, echoed her growing irritation. The right angles of the buildings, the orderly lives of the townsfolk, their predictable paths from home to work and back again. It all began to suffocate her, a cage of banality that tightened with every passing hour. The sensory overload of the town, the clatter, the colors, the ceaseless movement became overwhelming. The symphony of sights and sounds that had initially enchanted her now clashed with the tranquility she yearned for after her tumultuous journey. Alice realized she needed respite, a sanctuary where she could digest the flood of new experiences without the oppressive weight of human order. With a yearning for the familiar whispers of nature, Alice retreated to the nearby forest, leaving behind the lantern-lit streets for the embrace of the wild. The forest, a fringe of shadows and secrets at the town's edge, welcomed her with its cool, earthy breath and the soft rustle of leaves. Here, under the canopy of ancient trees, she found a makeshift bed of moss and fern, her resting place cradled by the roots of a towering oak. As night fell, Alice lay gazing upward, her eyes tracing the constellations above. In the Nightwood, the stars were restless dancers, their paths fluid and unpredictable, mirroring the chaotic essence of the realm. But here, they hung motionless in the sky, fixed points of light pinned to the velvet darkness. The realization struck her with an eerie wonder. The stars were stationary, and perhaps so was fate in this plane. This world, with its static heavens, suggested a destiny unchangeable, a future set in the stars, so unlike the ever-shifting skies of her Fey home. This stirred a mix of awe and a whisper of fear in her heart. The unchanging sky implied a predetermined path, a fate not chosen, but assigned. That night, as she lay beneath the stationary stars, Alice embraced the serene solitude of the forest. It was not the Nightwood, but it was closer to home than any human dwelling could ever be. The material plane was not her realm, but in this quiet corner, she could dream of chaos, a dance of whimsy and woe, in a world unprepared for the fey wilds harbored in the heart of a girl like Alice. Thus began her dance of discord, under the watchful eyes of the unchanging stars, in a world that whispered of both enchantment and eerie calm. The Jester's jealousy. Alice, recently emerged from the swirling chaos of the Nightwood, found herself ensnared by the monotonous rhythm of the material plane. Driven by a fey desire to inject some life into this stale existence, she began her exploits in the town of Valorous, a place all too wrapped in the comforting blanket of predictability. Determined to stir the pot of ordinary lives, she initiated her campaign of chaos with a sprinkle of innocent pranks. Before she ventured into her playful mischief, Alice adorned herself in a magical disguise. With a whispered incantation, her fiery red eyes shifted to a sparkling blue, and her vibrant hair softened into a blonde hue. This transformation, paired with her small stature, allowed her to melt seamlessly into the crowds of Valorous, her presence as inconspicuous as a leaf on the wind. Her ability to cast spells in silence was the final brushstroke on this canvas of deception. Day by day, Alice danced through the streets of Valorous, her magic a silent whisper of chaos. Alice, with a flick of her wrist, soured the town's ale, causing uproarious dismay at the taverns. Some townsfolk discovered their reflections, sporting outrageous beards or spectacles when they looked in mirrors. Magical marks appeared on doorways and livestock, symbols that twinkled briefly with fey energy before fading into the mundane. Laughter, light, and ringing escaped her lips as she watched her playful chaos unfold from the shadows. In these early days, despite the alien discomfort of the material plane, Alice found joy and a strange sense of belonging through her harmless disruptions. However, beneath the surface of her mirth, a deeper turmoil began to stir within her. As she wandered invisibly through the crowds, she saw the easy camaraderie of friends sharing secrets, the tender gestures of couples in love, the unguarded joy of families sharing meals, and the innocent play of children in the squares. These sights, so common yet so alien to her, gnawed at her. Alice, who could manipulate thoughts but not decipher the language of Valersky, found herself able to sense the emotions and desires beneath those foreign words. Emotions she had never known in the wild, untamed Nightwood, where expressing one's feelings was as natural as breathing and as crucial as the magic that fueled their existence. In this new world, emotions seemed not to liberate, but to bind, leading only to pain and confusion. Alice felt the unfamiliar pangs of envy and jealousy, strange, dark creatures that squeezed her heart with cold hands. These feelings were a far cry from the energy of the Nightwood, where emotions could be used like winds to steer one's course through the never-ending forest. Here, they were chains that tightened with every joyful scene she witnessed, reminding her of what she did not have. Struggling with her isolation and the burgeoning shadows within her heart, Alice Alice's pranks began to reflect her inner conflict. What started as light-hearted mischief slowly twisted into actions tinged with spite, as the girl's laughter began to lose its warmth, replaced by a hollow echo that mirrored her deepening loneliness. In the Nightwood, where Alice once danced under starlit skies, emotions surged like rivers, a force that could be harnessed, guiding one's journey like a ship navigating by the stars. There, feelings were not merely felt. They were tools, expressions of power, vital as the air. But here, in the rigid structure of Valorous, her emotions became shackles. Envy and jealousy squeezed at her soul with an intensity that turned breaths into gasps. In this strange new world, her feelings led her not forward, but deeper into a labyrinth of solitude. Communication became her first battlefield. The people of Valorous spoke in the clipped, harsh sounds of Valersky, a language as alien to Alice as the concept of emotional restraint. Her attempts to bridge this gap led her to a merchant, a solitary figure who spoke the low imperial of the Holy Carolinian Empire, a tongue that, inexplicably, Alice understood. Her mind, ever a tapestry of whispers and wind, clung to this familiarity like a castaway to driftwood. The merchant, however, was not a willing teacher. Upon discovering Alice's lack of coin, his patience evaporated like morning mist under the relentless sun. But Alice, fueled by a growing desperation, would not be dismissed so easily. She cast a spell, subtle yet binding, and compelled him to teach her. Day by day, she returned, drawing words from him like water from a well, slowly piecing together the jagged edges of their language. Yet, mastery of words did not open the doors she hoped it would. As she tried to weave these new threads of speech into conversations, she was met with impatience and irritation. The people of Valorous saw not a fellow soul striving for connection, but an outsider, cumbersome and slow. Their minds, open books to Alice, brimmed with annoyance, frustration, and disdain. Why could they not see her efforts? Why did they not recognize the depth of her longing? With each rebuffed attempt, Alice's frustration fermented into bitterness. She had reached across worlds, stepped through shadows, and bent her very being to understand them, to share in their laughter and their tears. But it was as if she stood behind glass, visible yet untouchable, heard yet not understood. This isolation seeped into her bones, cold and relentless. The more she observed their bonds, their effortless smiles, their easy silences, the more acute her alienation grew. No one sought her out. No one looked deeper than the surface. No one cared to unravel the enigma she presented. In a world where her magic could touch minds, but not hearts, Alice found herself adrift. Her emotions no longer sails, but anchors, dragging her into dark waters. As her heart hardened, so too did the nature of her enchantments. The playful mischiefs that once colored the town with chaos took on a sharper edge, a darker hue. If the world would not offer her its warmth, she would snatch away its joy. The spells she wove were no longer light-hearted pranks, but cruel jests, designed to fray the bonds she envied so fiercely. Families found sudden faults in one another. Lovers quarreled over trivialities, magnified into betrayals. And friends turned away from each other, their trust eroded by whispered suspicions. Her magic, once a beacon of mischief, became a weapon of war against the happiness she could not attain. With each spell cast, the laughter that once filled her became a rare, bitter cackle that echoed hollowly against the stone walls of Valorous. Her days were consumed not with delight, but with a relentless drive to dismantle the joy around her. Alice's world narrowed to a singular focus. If she could not lift herself out of loneliness, she would drag them down to dwell in discontent with her. The vibrant colors of the town dimmed under her influence. Its once cheerful bustle quieted to mistrustful whispers. She watched, her heart a twisted mirror of the discord she sowed, finding dark satisfaction in their strife. Yet, even as she shattered their peace, the ache within her only deepened. The joy of chaos faded to grim satisfaction, and then to nothing at all, leaving her emptier than before. In the quiet moments, when the spells had been cast, and the town lay uneasy under her gaze, the weight of her actions began to press upon her. In her relentless pursuit of retribution against an unkind world, she had isolated herself further, becoming a specter of vengeance, haunting the edges of human happiness, never partaking, always punishing. This path, she realized in a rare moment of clarity, led only to a chasm of despair, a place where not even the most potent magic could salvage the barren landscape of her soul. Yet, the course was set, and Alice, tangled in her own webs, found herself unable to turn back. Her envy had transformed her into an architect of sorrow, building her palace from the ruins of others' joy. And as the shadows deepened around her, so too did the realization that she had become what she most feared, truly and utterly alone. In the shadow of her own desolation, amidst the fractured relationships and the quiet sobs of a town caught in her web of sorrow, Alice's eyes caught sight of something that shimmered with the promise of a new beginning. High above the crestfallen streets, the grand towers of a distant castle rose against the sky, a beacon of a different life, one lined with velvet and bathed in soft candlelight. Here, perhaps, was a haven from the loneliness that gnawed at her spirit. She imagined a life of opulence, akin to the fairy tales she had savored in the dim light of the Nightwood's moon. Tales of princesses and feasts, of silk dresses and laughter that bubbled like champagne. Such thoughts sparked a flicker of warmth in her cold heart. To be cared for, to be loved not for the mischief she managed, but for her mere presence. This was a longing she scarcely admitted, even to herself. Fueled by a yearning for connection and a life of stories come to life, Alice wove herself into the fabric of noble society. Her enchantments, subtle and beguiling, opened doors to salons and soirees, where she became a silent specter at gatherings, her presence unnoticed, yet omnipresent. Here, amidst the clinking of crystal and the rustle of silk gowns, Alice listened intently to the whispered secrets and the veiled tragedies of the elite. As she immersed herself in this world, she gathered the threads of gossip and rumor, knitting them into a tapestry that told the stories of lives so openly displayed, yet closely guarded. It was in these currents of conversation that she discerned the tale of a noble couple, marked by their grace and the unspoken sorrow of their childlessness. This discovery struck a chord within her, mingling her own loneliness with the stark absence in their opulent lives. Their longing for a child mirrored her own longing for a family, a poignant symmetry that drew her irresistibly towards them. Armed with this knowledge, Alice approached their grand manor under the cloak of dusk. Her heart beat with a mix of fear and excitement. emotions she had not felt since her days in the Nightwood. She stood before their door, her magic ready at her fingertips, prepared to weave a spell that would bind them to her, to transform them unwittingly into the parents she had never known. As she raised her hand to knock, a whisper of doubt brushed her mind. Was this truly the path to happiness? Could a life built on enchantment ever be real? Yet the door swung open before her thoughts could deepen, and she was met with a gaze of gentle inquiry. A gaze that could become parental, filled with the love and acceptance she craved. As the door swung open, she was met by the curious, apprehensive looks of the noble couple. With a gentle smile, one that masked the tumult of her past, she allowed the enchantment to spill from her eyes, weaving a spell of acceptance and desperate longing. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "I am the daughter you've never had, the answer to your prayers." As the magical aura subsided, a profound pause enveloped them. Tears welled up uncontrollably in Alice's eyes as she continued to meet their gaze, her vulnerability laid bare, shimmering with sincerity. Her eyes, alight with a potent mix of magic and raw emotion, met theirs. And in the breath that followed, there was a profound recognition, an acceptance that warmed Alice's heart. The couple stepped forward, their arms open wide, their actions inviting her into not just their home, but their hearts. Alice, tentative yet driven by hope, stepped into their embrace. As they held her, every touch confirmed her existence and significance in ways that her solitary magic never could. They accepted her not as a mere figment of magical imposition, but as the long-awaited child they had always wished for. Within the warmth of their embrace, the icy shards of Alice's solitude melted away. There, in the grandeur of the manor, surrounded by the first genuine affection she had felt in this realm, Alice glimpsed the life she had dreamed of, a life rich with love and belonging, far removed from the shadows and deceits of her past. Her tears, mingled with joy and the catharsis of released burdens, marked the cleansing of old wounds and the first steps toward a hopeful, radiant future.